Well, on this issue of education that Morris was talking about, today's October 6th, spare a thought for our betrayed HSC students, final year secondary. The final exam has a different name in different states, but they're all facing exams. South Australia and the Northern Territory, October 19. Queensland, October 25. Victoria, October 27. WA, November 1. Tasmania, November 8. And New South Wales, November 9. The future of these young people has already been jeopardised. Politicians have talked all sorts of rubbish, pretending they care. Only last weekend we were told in New South Wales that HSC students will be able to meet up with more friends. There'll be Year 12 study bubbles, and that'll allow groups of 5 HSC students to meet at school, but only for up to 3 hours. I'm sure you're like me, tired of all this freedom-sapping jargon that's almost impossible to understand. I doubt one HSC student understands this nonsense. Students won't be able to float between or switch study bubbles, so the groups of 5 must only meet up with one another. And in the lockdown areas, the study bubble started yesterday. You've got the New South Wales Education Minister, who, I'm sorry, is absolutely clueless about any of this. Sarah Mitchell says this will help ease their anxieties, but the bubbles must be either outdoors, are you kidding me, sitting under a tree, discussing here how you might answer an HSC exam question. But as I said, you can only be on the school grounds for up to 3 hours. Who polices this rubbish? And you must be in an indoor room with lots of ventilation. Think of some of the classrooms across Australia. They wouldn't pass that test. I want to say what most parents know and what the beleaguered students have had to accept. You cannot learn online. The trouble is, students tell me that online learning, studying off a screen, is not much different from what happens in the classroom. Have teachers abandoned the obligation to teach, to instruct, to inculcate a love of learning? Or have they surrendered to the easy way out? Check your screens and study for yourself. Oh, Europe between the wars. Do that on your screen. Teacher involvement nil. There's already an indication in Britain that we've failed our students because there's any amount of evidence that says, and our own Prime Minister said this last year, kids should be back at school. The new Premier of New South Wales, Dominic Perrottet, is saying that. But what they're saying to final year students in Britain is this: don't worry, we'll inflate your results and we'll give you advance notice of which topics to study, and we'll focus on papers which are not so difficult, so as to make up for the COVID-19 disruption, so that more students will receive higher grades than they did before the pandemic. This is called a safety net for those who missed out on learning during school and college closures. So there you are. Politicians condemned by their own words, acknowledging that students have missed out on learning, so students are going to be given higher grades, which they haven't earned, but kid them to believe that despite the coronavirus lockdowns and lockups, they've actually earned something when they haven't. I just want to say to students, forget these politicians. If you're in your final year, just accept that you may not have learnt what you need to know to be better prepared for the world outside the classroom, but motivate yourself to teach yourself and use others to help you in these final critical days. I know it's been very hard and it will be hard, and you've deserved a lot better, but if you triumph, it'll be a splendid victory.